It says recording in progress, Dean. That means we're live.
Oh, is the beta test commencing?
It has commenced and it has started. How are you, my friend?
I'm fine. I can't see. Okay, now I can see you. Sorry, I was jumping all around the windows. I'm okay. I'm going blind. I need glasses almost for everything now.
Yeah,
Well, more for close stuff,
my
you
glasses
know?
are right here. I These are bifocals, but the thing is, I've always had a problem with glasses and computers. Like not so much like I have those blue blocker glasses that I wear sometimes, but it doesn't really make a difference. So I tend not to use them regardless, and I just go without just because it.
Speaking, when you say blue blocker, you mean for the laptop or a computer?
Yeah, like any kind of screen, you have these there are these blue blocker glasses. They look exactly like my glasses. They don't look much different. I wish I could show them to you, but like you get them kind of like at pharmacies, like readers, you know what I mean? Like you can get
Oh,
them just about anywhere. Like I got them at Target. But anyway,
right,
like
right.
I probably should use them, but I don't use them at all.
So I was driving the other night, and I swear to God, I mean, I have an older car, a 2009 Pontiac Vibe.
Okay.
Anyway, I wouldn't have necessarily chosen it, but it was a deal, and
Yeah,
I've used it, and it's become my little baby of sorts, right?
sure.
So, maybe because I'm aging out or whatever, but like late at night, I have my car lights, and maybe other older cars have car lights. You know, when you're kind of like on a road, and there's no cars around, so you put the brights on so you can
Yeah,
see better.
yeah, yeah.
And then the thing to do is when you see another car's lights coming, you turn them off and you pass
Yes.
each other politely. They've made cars now that are like Jack Kirby boom tube lights, like insane. I don't know how anybody's supposed to see from
Yeah,
behind or in front.
yeah.
And I just feel like, shouldn't that be illegal, man, to make lights that bright?
Well, the funny thing that I come into is because I live in a more rural area than even though it's
Yeah.
not completely the boondocks or anything like that, but like that whole courtesy thing of, on and off and everything. I get blinded every night and I'll turn mine off and I'm just like, God damn it. I should have kept them on just to like prove a point. We probably both would have died, but
I was
still.
gonna say you keep them on to make sure the accident
Yeah.
happens. Like no, it's messed up and like but like I said, I think there's the new lights don't are not low at all. Have no low
Really?
kind of version. I think it's just and it's white lights. At
Yeah,
least
yeah. Yeah, I know
the
what you're
ones
talking
I'm
about.
used to have like a twinge of yellow. So Jen was saying to me, there are glasses you can wear that are yellow, I think
Yes.
glasses for
Amber
driving
or
at
something
night.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So wow, at least I snuck in a Jack Kirby comic book reference in,
It
because
wouldn't
what are
be
we here for?
comics.
We're here to maybe to start a regular conversation. Like
Yeah.
two white dudes. Except you're half white. What's your
I'm Puerto Rican and Italian, yeah.
Puerto Rican Italian?
And you're
I'm I'm
Jewish,
half
Italian,
well a quarter Jewish, but
sure.
I'm
It counts.
but Italians and Jews made comic books happen.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Um,
One had the money, the other had the talent.
oh, what you talking about, Willis?
I'm talking
Them
about
fighting
like
words.
if not for the Jews, there would be no comics, but the Italians are the ones that like, you know, with the newspaper syndicates and everything, like.
Well, speaking of, man, like I've always, well, first of all, let me just finish by saying that I'm half Austrian and half Polish,
Mhm.
quarter Jew, but I didn't grow up with any religion. I think
Yeah.
you did, right?
Yeah, I
You
grew up I grew up mostly Roman Catholic. And then my grandparents kind of became born again Christians. So that's kind of where my I don't want to say my personality, but like my identity is more that than it is Catholic, even though it's very weird. Catholicism gets into your like bones. So if
Mhm.
I go to a funeral or a wedding or something like a Catholic funeral, a Catholic wedding, I'll know when to like just like it's like religion is a weird word because it means so many different things, and it like when you do something religiously it becomes rote and it becomes kind of muscle memory, And if I go to a Catholic service, I will know exactly when to like sit and stand and stuff. And it is the craziest thing because you feel like you've been brainwashed, and it's ostensibly you have been. And like it makes you really, as an older person, makes you question, like, oh my God, like this is what it's all about. Like it's all about like,
Right.
making you a thing, instead of a person. Does that make sense?
Or like what I mean, obviously I also understand the negative connotations of religion. Like, is it a cult? Is it
Yeah,
people, who are telling you that your God isn't a real God, only my God? I mean, that's the extreme version, right?
right.
But yet at the same time, since I didn't grow up with any kind of religion, except I always joke that to be a New Yorker is to be Jewish,
Yeah,
right? Because
it's
I grew up
true.
on, bagels, Chinese food, and comic books, right? That's
Right.
all Jewish, right? Basically. But but there is something to, and I know my father benefits from this in Long Island, where like there's a Sunday church thing and they
Mm.
get boxes of food and they help each other,
Yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of hypocrisy. The minute you turn your back, so and so might be like that guy. I never liked that guy, but in your face, they might help you.
Right.
Like the idea of community, or they say it takes a village, right? And I
Mhm.
feel like that's the best parts of like certain kinds of religion is when you take care of each other regardless.
Well, let me ask you a question. This is to pull the curtain a little bit. We decided we were going to ask each other like kind of starter questions, and it kind of fits into this. Um, you're, I think, about 5 years older than me, maybe six at the most. You were born in the late '60s. I was born in the early '70s. So I would say that you are more of a '70s kid, and I'm more of an '80s kid, because that's kind of when we kind of turned on to the things that have turned us on for the entirety of our lives.
Right.
You grew up in Manhattan, if I remember correctly. I grew up in Staten Island, so we're only about a couple of miles away from each other. A ferry ride away. Do you think you're better than me?
Um,
And I mean that, and I mean, I don't mean that
I
like,
mean,
I don't mean that in that way. I mean that in, um, do you think that there is a benefit to growing up in Manhattan as opposed to
yes.
one of the outer boroughs to bring you to who you are? And like we're peers at this point, like where
Right.
I
Right.
mean,
Right.
I
Right.
really consider you a mentor, but like, we're
Well,
kind of
thank
peers
you.
at this point. But do you think that there is a benefit to growing up in Manhattan as opposed to, say, Staten Island or Queens, or even maybe not the Bronx, but I think
Sure.
Manhattan and the Bronx are probably uh, coexist in that respect.
And also, and to remember this, like Manhattan from the 70s and 80s and Staten Island from the 70s and 80s. Well, I'd say Manhattan is probably very different. I don't know how different Staten Island is from when
Uh,
you
Speaking
were a
to
kid.
that, I could say that Staten Island has changed very little in terms of layout, but there are things that are different. Ron Hill, who we both know, um, proprietor of JHU Comics in Staten Island, he can probably speak to it a lot better because he was commuting a lot more
Mm-hmm.
between both stores during the '80s and '90s. So he
Right.
might be able to speak to it a lot better than I can. But in my experience, and not so much lately because I've been in Pennsylvania for the past 9 years, um, I've found that Staten Island still feels the same,
Mm-hmm.
but there are things that when you turn your head, you're like, that wasn't there the last time I was here. And it might be a restaurant, it might be a storefront, it might be that an entire neighborhood demographics have shifted. It's hard to really put. I mean, the the knock on Staten Island that is that it's mostly Italian Yankee fans that voted for Trump, and
And
that
cops
hasn't changed,
and conservatives, right? Cops and
right?
conservatives, right?
And that hasn't really
So
changed from
right,
my point of view.
right. Now, as I've gotten older, I would joke, and the answer probably is yes, I'm better than you. That's probably probably not even a feeling, but a fact.
Right.
No, but I'm also very open to like all sorts of like where personally I'm not a fan of Trump or any,
Mhm.
and I'm not looking forward to 2025. I understand he's a spectacle. I understand. uh I even understand why people vote for Trump,
Mhm.
actually, now. And I would say more, like you said, Staten Island, and it's not, and I wouldn't make a what do you call it, an opinion based on just Trump alone, like where,
Mhm.
let's use Trump as our metric, kind of
Right,
thing.
right,
I don't care
right.
about that. In some ways, what I think I like about what I understand about Staten Island is that it's very family oriented,
Yes.
and in its conservative ways. I don't think they're anti homosexual or anti-transgender necessarily, or they'll keep those feelings to themselves if they feel that way, kind of thing. I don't think people are going to tell you what to do necessarily. Whereas I believe in Manhattan, the melting pot of the world, let's call it, right?
Mhm.
I mean, the word privilege, right?
Sure.
Like, I never felt it more, the idea, the concept of privilege, but because I grew up in Manhattan, and as you get older, you realize the privilege you had of just being surrounded by all kinds of culture and
Yeah.
food and art and anything, like everything, not necessarily maybe the most authentic versions of, but enough of a trickle down version of, if that makes sense, of
Yeah. No,
all types of life.
weirdly, I grew up in Staten Island from 73 to 85, 84. No, 85. Maybe even 86 now that I think about it. I was 11, 12 years old when I moved to Pennsylvania for high school. So my experience, I didn't get to go into the city at all at that point. Like it was
Wait,
because the
wait,
city was,
hold on one second. I
yeah,
thought you moved to Pennsylvania more recently, the last 9 years. I didn't realize you had a Pennsylvania history.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so for those joining us at home, get ready to strap in because my travels and my life have been very tumultuous. So I grew up in New York from 73 to 85, let's say. Um, moved to Pennsylvania when I was in seventh grade. Went to high school out here. I met Michelle, my wife, when I was 15,
Oh, so
and she was
Michelle's
13.
Pennsylvania
Yeah,
native. Okay.
yes, yes. And so then I went to the University of Pittsburgh, dropped out, moved back to New York. Lived in New York up until so you're looking at 93 to 99. 99, I moved to LA, lived there for 3 months, and then decided it was not for me.
I remember that story. He
Moved to
told a great story
Seattle.
about that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you might coax me to tell that's one of those stories. Not tonight, but at some
No,
point.
no.
Moved to Seattle, lived there for about a year, and then I moved back to New York, which is when around the time that I met you. So this is circa 1999, 2000 is when I moved back to New York. I started working at Hanley's in 2001. So that's about the time that I met you.
And one of the reasons why you went, I believe, to LA was to be an actor,
Yes, yes.
which you have a great story about, which we'll save for
I
later. Yeah.
have I have a couple, more than a few. But yeah, but going back to the idea um, of the melting pot and everything, like I said, I didn't go to Manhattan very. I don't. I might have gone once or twice with my dad when he was working in Chelsea.
Right.
Um, and I remember going to, I think it was Rogers uh, comic store.
Time
Uh,
Machine
yeah,
on
like
like 14th or something.
yeah, like I
Yeah,
went
yeah.
there very, very young. Like my dad took
Hmm.
me over there because his offices were like very close by. And but my view of Manhattan at that point was that it was a war zone and that it was no place to for like a kid like me to be. And granted, like I was being ushered through. I remember this distinctly. I used to tell Julie Lou this, who I used to work with at Jim Hanley's. And she, like I said, I remember taking a bus through Chinatown and just seeing this gang of dudes and just being like, those dudes are ninjas, you know, like like those dudes are out of a Shaw Brothers movie. I don't know what they're up to, no good. And I was just like ducking on the bus going back to Staten Island. And I don't know, like it's that you have this, like you were saying, there are these influences that are around you at all times and you're cognizant of them and you're aware of how they work, to set up your view of the world. But a lot of being on Staten Island, even though we're only about a mile away from the city, from ferry to ferry terminal, it felt like a different world entirely. It felt like if you watch it, the only exposure you have until you go in is TV news, um, secondhand reports from other people you know that have gone that are like, oh my God, I saw somebody get stabbed or something. You know what I mean? Like there's no true metric until you actually go there. And that didn't happen for me until I was 15 or so. I came back for a Christmas vacation and my cousin Robert and I went into the city to go to Forbidden Planet.
Mm, wow.
Weirdly enough, of all places, there are comic stores in Staten Island, Jim Hanley's Universe being one of them, but we had to go to Forbidden Planet for some reason, you know?
Right, right. Well, you had to like check off the boxes of the different
Yeah,
stores. Like for me as a kid, I went to West Side Comics. I went to Funny Business. West Side
funny.
Comics was at 80, either 86 or 87th. I think it was 86 in West End. Dave Toper, I think it was his name, the
I've heard
owner.
that name. Yeah.
And I mean, that was my first encounter walking into a comic shop. And I'm with my then best friend, Mike Houston. And he's still my best friend. Why'd I say
Yeah, I
then?
was gonna say.
uh, and uh, uh, what's his name? Mark Hamill
Oh.
walks in, pushing his little kid in a a baby carriage, whatever that little
Stroller,
carriage
yeah.
thing, and I'm like, what? Like I'm a huge Star Wars fan. In fact,
Right.
real quick, I remember buying the comic book, okay, drawn by a guy that 9 years later I'd be assisting,
Yeah.
Howard Chaykin, which
Yeah.
is crazy. And to speak to our difference in ages, I saw Star Wars in the movie theater. I don't think you did.
I did, but it wasn't first release because I was
Oh,
4
so
when it
right,
came out. There,
right,
first of all, it stayed in movie theaters for over a year. I would imagine that it went out and came back because I was about 5 or so when I did see it, and
right.
I did see it
Okay.
in the movie theater.
All right. So
I didn't
technically,
see it first run.
right, you can see the first one. In fact, I saw a second run or whatever of The Exorcist at like age 10. Just like, what is going on in this movie? But anyway, so Mark Hamill's, I didn't, we discover he's a huge comic book fan, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at this guy, and I'm like, I didn't know what to say. Usually now I've gotten good at like, I will say hello to my heroes and want to shake
Mhm.
their hand and say thank you. Like I make it a point to do that because uh, you may never see them again. They may pass away. You might have wished you said something, so whatever. But I don't remember saying anything to him. He's buying comic books, and like, I'll never forget this. So, uh, Mark Hamill's like going through some comic books. His kid is over here. His kid had a toy, and the
Mhm.
toy fell onto the ground. And I might have made a gesture to go help, but the kid's kind of reaching like this for the
Mhm.
toy. And Mike says, use the force. And he said it out loud enough so that Mark Hamill would hear that. I don't remember what happened next. I'm sure Mark Hamill must have laughed, or maybe Mike ran out the door like to leave me holding the bag, kind of thing. I was
Oh,
like, what a brilliant response,
to be a
to
fly on the wall. Oh my God.
but no man,
That's
that was a
perfect.
really those are formative years. And also, like I remember one time there was a signing, it was gonna be a real deal comic book artist there. And I remember going and I entered the comic shop at West Side Comics. And there's this really, I hate to say it, and I'm not, whatever, but I can describe what I saw was a very greasy human being. And I was
We've all
like,
been to comic shops at this point. We know what you're
yes.
saying. You know what I mean?
And
Yeah.
like this dude, and it was Dave Sim, and he was hawking a comic called Cerebus.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, and maybe he was just very sweaty or whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stringy hair and like he didn't care, whatever. Not, I mean, look at me, whatever.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. But no, that and then Funny Business was also an incredible. It was run by a guy named Roger as well. I forget his last name right
Mm.
now, but he was a therapist who also ran a comic shop, whose really good friend was Bill Mantlo.
Wow.
And I would say a lot of my, when we'll get to this another episode, but we can talk about our eras. Who was
Mhm.
our Spider-Man, our
Yeah.
Hulk, and I don't mean our favorite, but the one you grew up with
Yeah.
understanding, kind of a thing. And Bill Mantlo was like my Hulk writer was Sal Buscema as the
Yeah.
artist, and he did, was it Micronauts and a bunch of other stuff as well. in fact, I think he co-created Wood God, which is a character
You're one of your
that
favorites. Like I can't. It's funny how they had the Penguin TV show recently on HBO, which a
our
lot of
show of
people
the year.
love. I have not watched it, and the reason why I have not watched it is because I've never liked the Penguin as a character,
Uh-huh.
and I never cared for him to be kind of the main focus of anything. And I've seen clips, and I'm like, that's actually really good, and I'm really kind of not kicking myself that I haven't watched it yet, but just like, yeah, I definitely have to watch it at some point. So, but I have this kind of like this weird bias towards, I hate to say it, like heavier set characters, because they didn't like, I don't know what it is. Like there's a point I remember when I was a kid, I wouldn't read Wonder Woman comics because I thought they were made for girls. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Meanwhile,
I get
there's no
that.
way. Like when you look at the history of it, and the William Moulton Marston, and his weird sex trifecta and all that stuff. It's definitely not made for children, much less boys or girls. It's
Or
just,
like some of the concepts are definitely like, wait a second,
yeah,
where'd that originate from? Like the guy who, the writer who co-created Wonder Woman. You said it was William Marston. Was that his
yeah.
name?
William Moulton Marston, I think, created
Didn't he create the lie detector?
he created what originally was called something else, but it became
The
the
lie, and
mechanics of
we
it
all
became, yeah.
right. And Wonder Woman's lasso,
Mhm.
one of her powers is that she can wrap it around you, and you'll have to tell the truth, kind of thing, which is so interesting. And then there was like a lot of like frisky business, I think. Um,
Well, she lost her powers when she was tied up by a man. Meanwhile,
really?
yeah, meanwhile his two, like his wife and his other wife, I forget what her
Oh,
actual,
in real life, in real
yeah,
life.
like I
Right,
think like practice bondage or something like that. So
right, right.
there's a lot of, write what you know, kids.
But I was gonna say, you're making me want to read Wonder Woman
Well,
more right now.
but you're also an adult, so
I
it
am,
was written
I
for
am.
you. But
Sure. I mean, yeah, which is such a this is again another interesting topic for conversation. Is I've I feel like my art style, okay, which is cartoony, but also indie black and white comics type stuff from the 80s, so it's very 60s Marvel and very 80s black and white kind of comics, right? Combined together. But
right.
ultimately it's very YA, easily YA, my art style.
Do you think
Young
that's
adult.
due to like the blockiness of it and the cartooniness of it, or
Well, look at Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby, and even Will Eisner today. I think would be considered YA artists.
sure?
Even
Uh,
though they might have been ahead of their time in the '60s, now it created a standard that it looks kind of like cartoony, whatever, right? And
right.
again, I'm not using the term cartoony to disparagingly. It's just a description. And but the reason why I bring this up is because I think my art style befits the current trend and popularity of YA graphic novels.
Sure.
But I have a really tough time coming up with ideas for a 12-year-old, even though I feel like when I write the Red Hook, it might have some serious stuff in there and maybe a thing, but I still feel like a 12-year-old could read it, you know?
I think that as I've gotten older and as I've had kids,
Hmm.
um, my I'm a little less precious with what I want to expose them to. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't want I was telling James, my son, the other day, like let's watch Die Hard. It's Christmas. We should watch Die Hard. He's like, Die Hard's not a Christmas movie. It doesn't there's no word Christmas in the movie. Like the word Christmas isn't in the title. It's called Die Hard. What kind of Christmas movie is that? Smart kid. And so I said, just watch. You're gonna see like Christmas trees and everything. I swear to Christ, the kid saw a Christmas tree in Nakatomi Plaza and goes, "Oh, Christmas tree. All right, I'm out." And like left. And he's like, "It's a Christmas movie. You're right." And then he left. And
And it was it. It was done.
like, don't you want to
Right.
see the guns and
Yeah,
everything?
right.
Nah, nah. And he just,
He
I'm
doesn't
waiting
wear
for
any
you
shoe. He's barefoot most of the
yeah.
movie. If I'm
He
correct.
he he was just like, all right, you made your point. I'm out. but um,
What do you think part of that is, and how old is he?
he's 9. He'll be 10 in June.
So, like my studio mate Whitney Matheson has a 12-year-old or
Yeah, I
13,
think she's closer to Sadie's age. Yeah.
something like that. Voracious reader, but that could be because the mom reads,
Mm,
and starting to become a voracious like TV movie watcher, kind of
sure.
thing. Because again, that's something that Whitney enjoys. So okay, like the parent down to the kid, but like I feel like there are a lot of young people. Uh, I don't know if they can, if they desire to immerse themselves in story. If they
Right.
The minute you say that's a 2-hour movie, they're out.
Oh,
I can't be scrolling through my phone with a 2-hour movie,
right.
or you can't, and then you're just being a jerk,
Yeah.
because someone created a seamless, immersive experience for you to just sit back and let it be showered over you. This story, just all you have to do is keep your eyes open and keep your ears perked, you know. But
I
no, you know,
I got really lucky because Sadie, I took her to a movie when she was maybe 4, like her first movie, and she was 4 maybe, and she was perfect throughout the entire movie. It was Zootopia, and she watched it. She asked questions, like during, and I was like, I don't know. Like I had to keep telling her, I don't know. I haven't seen this movie, and she like just like Whitney's daughter, she got a manga for Christmas. I got her one of her mangas that she reads, and she read it in a day. And
oh
she's
yeah, oh they
like,
just died, boom, in,
yeah, she
yeah,
like she read it before the end of the day, and like she's like, now I got to get the next one. It's like, oh my god, like she more than anybody, more than either of my kids, I should say, is very attuned to the arts. Like she plays
right,
clarinet. She is very interested in Broadway and acting, and just plays in musicals and stuff. So
right.
I feel like she kind of like gets it, whereas James wants the immediate satisfaction of playing a video game, and like he's like now playing games where he builds video games within the game.
Okay, so to speak to that point, like what I understand too is, and I guess we would have been into this as well. We were their age in today's era,
Mhm,
is that it's about you now.
mhm.
The story's
Yeah,
about you. Like when someone is reading someone else's story, there's a little bit of a distance. You can and it's about them, but also you can relate hopefully to
mhm.
certain issues, or drama, or obstacles, desires, dreams, and then there's it, but it sits over there. I think today there's this divider that says, but how is it about me, and how can I control the story?
Yeah,
I ergo games,
yeah.
where you know
There's I enjoy, or maybe it's the nostalgia uh, bomb in me, but I always enjoyed choose your own adventure stories, and I think video games do that very well. Do you know what I
right,
mean? Where
yeah.
if you play this game through a certain way, one outcome will happen. If you play it a different way and you make different choices, another way will happen. I just started playing Red Dead Redemption 2, which is a
Mm.
cowboy Western thing. And you are an outlaw, but like you can determine whether or not you're evil or good by certain interactions with people. And there's like a meter that comes up. It's very weird, it's very cool. And
Mm.
I'm enjoying it. I only started playing it 2 days ago, and I'm really enjoying it. And like James is like, "Are you going to play that tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think I will." So
It's funny because I don't really do video games anymore. Like I used to do Atari and
mhm,
Super Nintendo, right?
mhm.
And in fact, I do have something at home that I rarely turn on, but it's kind of a simulated Super Nintendo
Like an
thing that has like
emulator or something.
30
Yeah.
games on it, and you just
Mhm.
turn it, plug into your TV, and you can play
Yeah.
with the thing. And it's very old school, it's
Mhm.
almost like Tetris, right, in a way. Um, but the games I've been playing lately are board games and card games with Larry O'Neill,
Okay.
and a bunch of other friends. And by the way, Larry is Denny O'Neill's son, for the comic book fans who are watching this show.
Gene is
Uh,
better than me. See, he grew up with
Already, right
he
there,
grew up with Larry as well in
I met
Manhattan.
Larry when I was 17 in Harlem, when we
Yeah.
went to music and art high school. Uh, and it was it like second or third year of high school, and then our senior year, music and art got married to performing arts and became LaGuardia High
Right.
School, and that was when I was an assistant to Bill Sienkiewicz, Walt Simonson, and Howard Chaykin in the same year, which was crazy. In 1985, because you said you left New York in
Yeah.
1985. Yeah, so that was bananas. Um, but yeah, now I've lost my thought. Where were we were
Video
going
game.
from?
The board
Video
game
games,
thing.
right? So the board game. So now we play board game. Like tomorrow night, I'm hanging out with Mike Houston and Lear O'Neill and a bunch of other folks, and we're gonna play like this game called Decrypto, possibly Code Names, Parade, Just One. I mean, or maybe some card game, or
That's
you know,
like I used to enjoy playing role playing games like D&D or the Marvel role playing game. David Gallagher, who is another writer, a friend of ours, he sometimes will host a Marvel superheroes game, and they're a lot of fun, especially if you get the right people and you get the right like. And David runs the game, so you got the right guy running the game, and like he sets the tone really well. And I like they just did a Kickstarter for the DC role playing game on last week. I think it ended, and it was successful, and I can see why, because those things are kind of, they never really go out of style.
so
Like
this is so DC kickstarted the Kickstarter.
no Xenozoic, I think, or not Xenozoic.
But it's sanctioned. It's a sanctioned
Yes,
DC.
it was a
Got it.
gaming company
Okay.
that did. So we got about 3 minutes left before we have to end this, which,
Okay.
like, if you've ever listened to us talk, we could talk forever.
We
Um,
could. Do you want to do another half hour after this and knit it together?
no, I think this is a good little teaser.
All right. This
Um,
is a good teaser. Should I save? I was going to ask a question. If we have 3 minutes, do you think you can answer it really quickly?
yeah,
I
go
can
for it.
try. It's a really nerdy question. I actually have
Sure.
my answer, but I'd rather hear yours.
All
So,
right.
in 1963, Marvel created the Avengers.
Mhm.
Okay, and I could get into the whole history, but I won't do that right now.
Right,
The Avengers were Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Ant-Man, and the Wasp.
right.
And I believe one of the reasons why they created the team was because they had the Fantastic Four, they had Spider-Man, and then they had these solo books. And I feel like it was a way to put those people together into one book to get more, to get extra
Sure.
monies, as
Yeah.
it were, let's say, and create another team book. That same year, they also invented the X-Men. So they were into team books. Okay.
Mhm.
2025. Who are the five Avengers? Oh, and I'll even say this: they added Captain America in issue 4,
Four.
right?
Yeah.
So who are the five Avengers, and then you can add a sixth one. Today, if you took the same idea of taking popular solo characters today, who would be the Avengers?
I think Bendis did it already. Like he took Wolverine, Spider-Man. Uh, I think those are the most Miss Marvel might be the second.
Miss
Like
Marvel or Captain Marvel?
the young girl, Kamala
The
Khan.
Miss Marvel.
I think
Okay.
she's more popular now than not. Deadpool would have to be an
All
Avengers
right.
four.
Right.
Then
Which,
you
by
have,
the way, would be weird. He'd be such an anomaly. Like he'd be the
yeah,
interesting
he's a super
anomaly.
outlier.
Yeah, the
Um,
super outlier.
and then I think you have to add Cap and possibly Iron Man. You know,
So, oh, right. So you would go back to some of the originals. My answer.
only for the tie. The
So
tie.
my answer would be Wolverine,
Mhm.
She-Hulk, Black Panther,
Oh yeah.
Moon Knight, Daredevil, and Deadpool.
Oof. So we both said Deadpool.
Yeah.
Who in 2024, 2025, who would have ever thought that?
Who
All
would
right,
ever thought Deadpool? All
Dean,
right, man.
thank you very much. We're going to do this again in about 2 or 3 weeks, only because I think Dean and I are both going to be on vacation.
Right. All right.
All right.
This
Thank you
was
very
fun.
much.
Talk to you soon again. Thanks, guys. Okay.